How many people in the room have used ChatGPT? Okay, pretty good. How many people are actually using it in the business versus just like played with it to write a poem or make up some Pokemon characters? All right. It's actually really good at making up Pokemon characters if you have kids and want to try that. So the focus today is going to be that ChatGPT is just the tip of the iceberg for your business. So we're going to talk about ChatGPT, but we're also going to go much deeper on this. How many people would consider themselves beginner level in terms of their understanding of what artificial intelligence is? Just quick show of hands. Okay, that would be the norm. I would be surprised if people were more at the intermediate advanced stage, especially like business leadership. I talk with and work with some of the biggest CEOs and C-suites in the world, and the level of understanding of this stuff is so low. And that's good and bad. So ChatGPT was a bit of a blessing and a curse for me. So I started my Marketing AI Institute in 2016, and it was a bit of a slow roll to get people to listen and to care about the future of business and marketing and the impact AI was going to have. And so I, in November of 21, put out this 1 million marketer challenge. It was just like, hey, if we could get 1 million marketers to care, because there's 11 million worldwide, then we could maybe move this industry forward. And little did I know, a year later, ChatGPT would show up and get 100 million marketers and other people to care. And so my life's work was basically done at that moment. At least the part about getting people to pay attention. The problem it created was rapid adoption of a technology that people didn't understand. And this is happening in marketing, it's happening in business, it's happening in education. I get calls every week from principals, deans of business schools, heads of school systems that are trying to understand what to do about this technology. So we're going to talk about the technology itself, and some of this, I will apologize in advance, is a little bit overwhelming. Like if this is really your first time thinking deeply about this topic and some of the things I'm going to show you, there aren't very many businesses prepared for what's about to happen. There aren't very many industries prepared for what's about to happen and how quickly it's going to happen. But I will end it with 5 steps I think you can take to leave here and take action within your organization. So to give you a sense of the fact that this isn't new, AI has actually been theorized and worked on since the 1950s. Generative AI, as a newer term within that umbrella, is the ability for AI to generate language, images, video, audio, code. It was a thing before ChatGPT. So this is October 17th, a tweet from Sequoia Capital. And I know you can't make this out, but each of those little things is a generative AI company. There was 30 of them in their landscape. A week later, she tweeted the second version. So this is October 24th. About 45 days before ChatGPT came out, and there was 100 generative AI companies on that landscape. My theory today is there's probably been about 3,000 more created since that time, and by the end of this year, we're looking at 10,000 plus generative AI tools and technologies. A month after this, still before ChatGPT emerged, CB Insights showed up, and they had 250 companies on their generative AI landscape. So again, the rate of change, the rate of acceleration, all it's taking right now is someone to look at an industry and say, oh, let me build some smarter technology for that industry. When that happens to senior living, it might be today, it might be tomorrow, it might be a year from now, but it's going to start happening. So the challenge here is that this has actually been happening a bit in plain sight. People just weren't listening. So this is Sam Altman, the co-founder and CEO of OpenAI. I'm always shocked if I take a poll and say, does anybody recognize this guy? Very rarely does anyone raise their hand, and yet he's probably going to be one of the most important people in humanity's history. So in March of 2021, he wrote a blog post called Moore's Law for Everything that talked about the accelerating rate of intelligence being developed within machines, basically. ChatGPT, when it came out, November 30th, 2022, was 2-year-old technology. So OpenAI had it in their lab for 2 years before they put it out into the world. So when he wrote this in 2021, he knew exactly what they had, what they were eventually going to release. And so he said the coming change will center around our most impressive of our capabilities, phenomenal ability to think, create, understand, and reason. At the time, going back through the history of AI, the assumption was blue-collar jobs, labor, like it was going to come from manufacturing jobs and things like that. It's not actually what's going to happen. It's going to come for knowledge work. And my current belief is it's going to take millions of knowledge work jobs over the next 18 months. I think it will replace some jobs. I think it will create some new jobs. But the trick is going to be it's going to happen so fast that industries aren't going to be prepared for it. And it's going to lead to massive layoffs of knowledge work. So it's kind of an evolving situation. But again, the problem right now is that we have this rapid advancement of technology. Now, we've been through things before. We've been through the invention of computers, computer chips, the internet, social media, mobile devices, like all this stuff. We've been through change before, but never anything this fast. Like a month after ChatGPT came out, there was 100 million users, the fastest growing consumer technology in history. So you have decisions being made by organizational leaders, industry leaders around technology that they don't even understand. And so that's my biggest concern at the moment is we have an uneducated, unprepared leadership in business and industry, in government, and so everybody's racing to kind of catch up. So I promise there will be positive aspects to this conversation. Part of the good news is AI has been interwoven into your life for the last decade, and you probably just didn't even realize it. So if you think about all the applications you use as a consumer, if you look at your phone, all the apps on the phone, the vast majority of these consumer technologies are powered by artificial intelligence, and they've been created in the last 10 years. None of these things would work without AI. And they're really impressive, and they reduce friction in your life, they personalize your experiences, they create convenience. The challenge in business is that we haven't seen the same level of innovation within the business software we use. So most of the software we use in business is still rules-based, meaning you and I write the rules to tell it what to do, and it doesn't get smarter without us. So that's the challenge, is we've seen AI everywhere in our life, didn't know it, and now we're starting to see rapid advancement where business solutions are having to build AI into their software. So the problem with trying to comprehend where we are in this moment is we are living at the base of an exponential growth curve of technology. The human mind thinks in a linear path. When you build a business plan for yourself, for your company, you can only envision a future in which you understand the technology that exists. So you look out ahead 12 months from now, 2 years from now, you think about the workforce, you think about the tech stack, you think about the processes you have, and you're going to build them under what you know to be true. The problem is the vast majority of what you know to be true is about to change. Literally, the ability to 10x knowledge work is happening in some industries already. And that's a very, very complicated thing to try and think about as a human. To give you a sense of how literal this is a LinkedIn post I put up on March 14th of this year. I was sitting in Cleveland about to fly to San Diego with a transfer in Denver. So 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, Runway, a company that I'll show you in a moment, teased a major breakthrough in the next generation of storytelling that they were going to release 6 days later. Meta announced they were laying off 10,000 people and halting the hiring of 5,000 more this year in a blog post called The Year of Efficiency by Mark Zuckerberg. It was like 3,000 or 4,000 words, and underlying all of it was that they thought AI could basically do the jobs of these people, and they weren't going to hire them, and they were getting rid of a bunch of people. Google announces access to one of their language models. A language model is what powers ChatGPT. I'll explain it a little bit more in a minute. They announced, again, 8:30 a.m., 5:30 a.m. Pacific, that they were going to open up this model and they were going to infuse it into Google Workspace. That was the moment where everything changed for me. I messaged my team and I said, OpenAI is about to release GPT-4. Like, I came from the PR world. There is no reason Google announces this at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time through a blog post and a tweet from their CEO unless they're trying to get out ahead of news in the industry, which is exactly what happened. So I landed in Denver. A couple hours later, OpenAI announces GPT-4. How many people have actually used like the GPT-4 version of ChatGPT? Yeah, it's mind-blowing. Like I live this stuff, and there's moments still where I use it. I'm like, it shouldn't be able to do this. Like it's really hard to comprehend. So all of this, basically like a decade worth of AI news in 4 hours from the time I woke up, and thank God I had $8 Wi-Fi on United that was working because I was able to keep track of what was happening. So I land in San Diego. I get access to the GPT-4, I think, that night. I'm testing it, sitting at dinner, like experimenting with how to do this stuff. And And I had to recreate my deck, to Michael's point, like for the next morning. And then that Friday, I was presenting to 100 CEOs from like major commercial insurance brokerages. And I had to try and explain all this to them. And it's really hard to comprehend. So in a tangible way, the way to think about this is if you look at all the work that knowledge workers do, and I'll stick to knowledge work, we'll get into labor in a minute, more the physical labor. But on the knowledge work side, at least 80% of what people do every day, the tactical things they do every day, will have AI assisting them. So I'm not saying we're going to wipe out all these jobs, but the way you use AI in your life in Netflix and Spotify and Gmail and Google Maps and all these places, that's what it's going to be like in your professional life. It's just going to kind of be infused within the software you use. Now, the reason this is accelerating, so previously, up until the middle of February, you would have to go find one of those tools on those big generative AI landscapes, go find tools to do specific things. What shifted in the middle of February was that the major platform companies started infusing AI right into the platform. So any HubSpot customers in the audience? Okay. So in a previous life, I built HubSpot's first partner agency. So my marketing agency that I sold a couple years ago was the origin of HubSpot's partner program back in 2007. So Dharmesh, the co-founder and CEO, is a friend of mine, great company. He introduced ChatSpot. So he's personally building a generative AI tool that will be embedded right within HubSpot. You can actually go get it today if you're a HubSpot user. And it'll have language and image generation ability right in there. So as you're writing your emails, it'll be connected to your CRM, as you're creating social shares, blog posts, all these things. So that was a Monday. Dharmesh dropped this Monday morning through a 19-minute video. The next day, again, PR timing is interesting, Salesforce announces Einstein GPT. Any Salesforce users in the crowd? Yep. So you're going to have same deal, image generation, language generation, eventually video generation, code generation. It's all going to be baked right into Salesforce. So you probably pay extra, I'm sure, knowing Salesforce, but you're just going to turn these features on. So that was interesting. That was February. So then we get Google. So this is a quote from Sundar Pichai, the Alphabet and Google CEO. This is actually from the World Economic Forum in 2021. He's used this quote as a talking point for years, that AI is the most important thing humanity has ever worked on. They think of it as more profound than electricity or fire. If you go back and read the 1998 paper where Google was created by Larry Page and Sergey Brin, they talked about building an AI-first company back in 1998. AI isn't new to Google. They just got caught asleep at the wheel when Microsoft partnered with OpenAI and did what they did with ChatGPT. But again, if you're a Google Workspace customer, if you have your email and Google Docs and Google Sheets and Google Slides, they are baking their language model, Palm, the one I mentioned earlier, right into Google Workspace. So you're going to have all these capabilities turned on for your workers probably by the middle to the end of this year. So again, you don't even have to go looking for this technology. It's going to live where you are. Then you have Microsoft, who put $10 billion into OpenAI in December to get early access to all of their most advanced stuff. And now what they're doing is they're going to infuse it right into Microsoft 365. So if you're a Microsoft 365 customer, you are going to have access to these tools, whether you have prepared your team or not to use them, probably by the middle to end of this year. So let me show you a video, because I think this is very representative of what is about to happen. All AI-generated text. Images and text generated by the AI again. This is my favorite. Never have to build another pivot table. Real-time graphs and narratives based on the data. Real-time transcripts. summaries and action items as it's happening. So now maybe it doesn't deliver exactly as it's showing it there in one of the better product demo videos I've ever seen, but that's the future of work that is already in private testing. Like, this isn't 3 years from now. This is the kind of stuff that, again, your team may have access to some point in 2023. And so when I share this with CEOs, you get the jaw on the floor, and once you pick that up, it's like, okay, what are you paying your administrative assistants to take the notes in meetings and do transcriptions and send summaries and you talk to law firms, you talk to all these people, and it's like no one is ready. Like, nobody understands this stuff. And so once you start seeing the real world practical applications of it, it changes the way you think about the future of business. So as AI advances, as these major platform companies push this technology into the world, right into the software we're already using, there needs to be a next generation of leaders that emerge. And I'm not saying, kids straight out of college, as we heard this morning, not the millennials per se, but you could be 25, you could be 75, I don't care. It's just this idea that we now have access to smarter technology that helps us do these things, and we need to embrace that it exists because we can't ignore it. It's not going to go away. So let's take a step back and say, what exactly is artificial intelligence? It's really helpful to have a deeper understanding. My favorite definition, and I have searched for over a decade for a way to explain this to people, is from Demis Hassabis. Anybody in the room know that name, Demis Hassabis? We got 1, 2. Probably going to end up being more important to humanity than Sam Altman. I believe Demis may end up being one of the most important people in history. He's created a company called DeepMind that got acquired in 2014 by Google. Just last week, they merged DeepMind with Google Brain to form a single AI research lab at Google. Demis's team built AlphaFold that predicts the folding of proteins. They're making major advancements in biology, climate change, nuclear fusion. So Demis is just a brilliant AI researcher. So he says the science of making machines smart. The simplest way for that to make sense is replace machines with software. So the software you use to do every aspect of your business will get smarter. It will learn from data, it will improve its recommendations and predictions based on that data, so that you improving your business doesn't require your people necessarily having to go seek out new knowledge to do it or learn how to use new tools. So AI is just this umbrella term for tools and technologies that make machines or software smart. Machine learning, you'll hear thrown around, it sounds really geeky, it's actually very simple. The machine, the software, learns. Data comes in, it learns from it, and it improves its predictions. So if I send 10,000 emails, the AI or the machine, imagine looking at open rates, click rates, conversions, all this data, and then improving the next email that goes out, versus your team sending an email, not looking at the data, and then sending another email. That's the simplest way to think about it. Deep learning is where the interesting stuff happens. That's the effort to try and teach machines to think and act like humans, trying to emulate the human brain. So we see this in, the technical term would be called computer vision. Has anyone tried DALL-E 2 or Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or any of these image generation technologies? Okay, we got a few hands. So this is ImageGen. This is Google's version of it. It is not publicly available. They debuted this last spring but have not released it due to concerns around its misuse. What you do is you give a prompt. So you're seeing it happen, there's going to prompt, and then it creates an original image. It's not stock art, it's nothing. It's from a pixel level up, it's building an original image of that. So we're seeing this have application, like your teams can be using this to create ads, social media shares, images for blog posts. Like, you could use this right now. It's readily available technology. This is the one you may not use, but I just want you to understand how fast this is moving and how weird the timeline we are about to live in actually is. So this is about a month old. This is from a company called Runway, which I mentioned earlier. They have they just raised $50 million in funding in December. But they introduced something called Gen 2, which is that same idea of text to video, though. So rather than me giving it a prompt and it creating an image, I give it a prompt and it creates an entire video. So let's watch this.
Not too long ago, Runway pushed the boundaries of generative AI with Gen 1, a video-to-video model that allows you to use words and images to generate new videos out of existing ones. In the week since launching, the model has constantly gotten better. Better temporal consistency, better fidelity, better results. And as more and more people gained access, we unlocked entirely new use cases and displays of creativity. And today, we're excited to announce our biggest unlock yet: text to video with Gen 2. Now you can generate a video with nothing but words. No driving video, no input image. Gen 2 represents yet another major research milestone and another monumental step forward for generative AI. With Gen 2, anyone, anywhere can suddenly realize entire worlds, animations, stories, anything you can imagine. Gen 2, coming very soon to runwayml.com.
So as you can imagine, it's reinventing creativity, like game design, motion pictures, everything. I showed this video to a class of multimedia students at Ohio University. There was video production majors in the room. And I had people literally come up afterwards saying, should I change my major? Like, do I even have a future now after seeing this? It's a very real thing. Like, people are afraid. I'm a writer by trade. My wife is an artist. Like, I am not an AI researcher, machine learning engineer, data scientist. I'm like, I come from the arts. So to see this, it's like, what does that mean? And so then we go into language, and you start saying, well, can AI actually write now on my behalf? Like, is it replacing writers? It's a really real question. We did an AI for Writers Summit in March. I thought we would get max 1,000 people. We had 4,200 registered for it, because people have no idea what this means. I've been consulting with deans of communication schools, trying to help them figure out the path forward. So on the language side, again, we're under that deep learning kind of element of AI. It's this human-like ability to understand and generate language. Again, if you use Gmail, for years you've seen this. Like, it was finishing your sentences for you on your text messages where it recommends replies, on Facebook where it recommends replies, even LinkedIn. That reply recommendation is using AI to understand the text of the original post and then recommend a response. But what we're seeing now is this massive breakthrough in the creativity and reasoning. This is where GPT-4 really caught a lot of people by surprise, and still is on a daily basis. So if you can't read this, I'll read it to you. So I use ChatGPT, and I pay the $20 a month, so you can have the same technology for $20 a month. So for $20 a month, I go in, and I said, write me a clever out-of-office email that explains I'm going to be slow to reply to emails because I'm traveling for a series of talks about artificial intelligence. So the subject line is, temporarily bridging the AI-human gap, expect delays in response. I'll just read the first paragraph because it demonstrates the creative capability, or at least the simulated creative capability, which I'll explain in a minute. So I hope this digital missive finds you thriving in the realms of human endeavor. As a devoted emissary of technology and knowledge, I've embarked on an intercontinental odyssey to spread the gospel of artificial intelligence. During this period of intellectual exploration, my response times to your electronic correspondence may experience delays akin to the speed of a tortoise browsing the internet on a 56K modem. So when I put this in, I didn't expect this level of creativity. Again, I'm a writer by trade. I could have spent a day and not written a paragraph like that. It's just not in my DNA to write that way. So I put that as my out of office. I said, hey, I've been doing this for 23 years. I got nothing left for out of office replies. Like, I asked GPT-4, here it is. Here's the prompt, here's what I got. I got so many replies to that out of office reply, it was hilarious. But it was a cool use case for it. So I went in and I tested it, GPT-4 again, for this event. And I actually said, you are presenting a talk to a group of CEOs from senior living facilities. Here's the session abstract. I gave it the description. And then at the bottom, I said, create an outline of challenges senior living facilities are facing and use cases for artificial intelligence in the senior living business. So now this is completely unedited, but you all can vet the legitimacy of the output. So it's saying, sure, here's an outline, details challenges. So we've got staffing shortages far and away, higher turnover rate and burnout, difficulty in recruiting and retaining skilled staff, increasing operational costs, providing personalized care, rising costs due to regulatory changes and increasing life expectancy, on and on and on. So on my first glance and my basic knowledge of the senior living industry, it seemed pretty accurate, like not bad. Now you can drill into it and say, okay, can you explain the staffing shortage? What's feeding that staffing shortage? And it'll do this. Like it can do like chain of thought. You can like push it and keep asking questions. So the thing I've found with GPT-4, the primary way I use it is actually as a strategy assistant. It's quite incredible at that. But for your team, whether it's marketing, sales, service, ops, HR, finance, wherever it is, anywhere where language is generated, there are use cases for this kind of technology. Now, it might not be ChatGPT. You may go get a different tool like a Jasper or Writer, different tools like that. But you can use it for drafting, editing, ideation. I use it all the time for that. Personalizing, simplifying, summarizing. So we take, like an example here, we take our podcast we do each week. We use AI to transcribe it. We use AI to summarize the transcription. We then use AI to write social media posts based on that. We publish the blog post with the summarization. So we've actually infused AI into our entire podcasting process, reduced the time and increased the output. And that's the kind of thing that becomes possible. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this may be the longest term, the most important element of AI for you all in your industry. So there's an organization called Figure. You can go to figure.ai and you can see this. There are massive efforts being made to build humanoid robots. This isn't new. This is the sci-fi stuff. Usually I say it's not the stuff you see in movies. This is the stuff you see in movies. The breakthroughs in vision and language have actually accelerated the possibility of humanoid robots becoming a part of the workforce in the next 5 to 10 years. So this is one company working on it. Elon Musk at Tesla is building something called Optimus. My belief is that they think Tesla may be reproduce what Apple did. Apple was a computer company that became an iPhone or device company. Tesla is a car company that very well could become a humanoid robot company because they see the market for this in the billions of robots. Amazon is also working on this technology. So part of the way your worker shortage may be solved in the future is through humanoid robots, as creepy as that may actually seem. This is the only thing I'm showing you today that you can't do today. This is the one thing where I'm saying, like, keep an eye on this because it's interesting where it goes. So how do we come back to 2023? What do you do with this information? How do you find use cases? The way to think about this is anywhere in your business, you can focus on marketing if you want, or customer service, whatever it may be. Think about the tactical things your team does, and it helps to pick an individual or pick a function within the business and really think deeply about that person or that group, and say, what do they do that's data-driven, that uses data to make decisions or predictions? Do they have a repetitive process? Do they do the same 10 things every time they do this thing? Are they making a prediction about an outcome or a behavior, and are they generating language, images, or video? As you can imagine, there are lots of things that your organization does that would fit these. If you have those, there's a possibility that you have a use case, that someone may have built a tool to do that thing smarter. So just one kind of showing you example, the book has 10 chapters of this by function within marketing and sales and service, like use cases, technology, so you can dive into that. Just the sales one, this gives you a sense of some of the use cases within sales and some example technologies. When I asked it, the use going back to the GPT-4, I said, what are some use cases in senior living facilities? So it got into personalizing experiences with, wellness programs tailored to residents, personalized communications and engagement, cognitive exercises and games for mental stimulation, routine administrative tasks such as scheduling and billing, medication management reminders, and on down the line. So there's lots of things that are well beyond marketing. So that's the funny thing is, like, I started in this doing talks about marketing. Now I usually spend my time with CEOs and leaders of organizations because everyone's trying to figure this stuff out. And again, you can go in and then grill GPT-4, like push it, say, okay, expand on this one for me. This is really important to me. I'll give you an example of how you could use this. A buddy of mine's a dentist. Texted me out of the blue on a Sunday night, and he's like, I'm getting crushed. Inflation has my costs up 15%. I am locked in my pricing because insurance pays for everything, and I'm losing my profit margin. I don't know what to do. I was like, well, give me a minute. So I went into GPT-4 and I gave it that exact prompt. You're a dentist, you own a dental practice, your costs are rising, your pricing is fixed. What do you do to drive efficiency with AI? It gave me 10 things instantly that he could do. I didn't know if they were valid or not. I don't know dental practice. I don't know how to run his business. I sent them to him and I got the, holy shit, dude, like 3 of these I could actually do right now. I didn't even think of this. I was like, cool, like there you go, I'll charge you for the 5 seconds of consulting time. So that's where it's going, is like you still need the domain expertise. Like you have to look at the output and say this makes sense or it doesn't. That's why I say it's ideation. It is not put it in, you have your strategy, move on. It's put it in, save yourself 5 hours of thinking, assess it, and then go deeper on the stuff. And that's how I use it, just all the time, ideate and strategize. So 2 ways to get started in your organization. I'll spend a moment on these. Again, there's a whole chapter of the book dedicated to these concepts. The first is problem-based, which I think of as director level and above kind of approach, and the use case is the practitioner level. So in the problem-based model, you have a known pain point or challenge in your organization, and you're under the assumption maybe there's a smarter way to solve this than we've historically tried. So some examples here would be improving efficiency, driving costs down, increasing revenue, personalizing care and communications, recruiting and retaining talent, common certainly in your industry and in many industries. So what you want to do here is have a problem statement that clearly defines the issue you're trying to solve, and then you have to have a value statement as well. This is, what is it worth to us to solve this problem? Because what you want to do is put these into a spreadsheet and then list all of your problems. So, okay, we came up with 10 problems or 20 problems, whatever it is, stack your value statements next to them, and then say, okay, 1, 3, 5 year, if we could do 1 of these a quarter, or 1 every 6 months, whatever it is, where do we start? And this gives you a really simple way, you may expand on this spreadsheet, but gives you a simple way to think about prioritizing ways to use AI. And then you would go through kind of a standard methodology of assessing the problem, what are the issues driving it and all that, and eventually end up at your final recommendations of what to do. The second that you could do tomorrow or have your team do is look for quick win pilot projects. And what I mean by this is use cases where you say, okay, if we could intelligently automate parts of this job, podcasting, blogging, social media, sales, emails, customer service, whatever, how valuable would that be to us? And so you do the same thing. I like to organize by like different functions. So in this case, it's all marketing centered, but you have email, blogging, advertising, social, the actual task that people do. You could assign this to a single member of your team, say, could you build this out for your role? And let's just look at ways we might be able to help you. How often you do it, how much time you spend on it, what tech you're currently using, how much you're spending on that. You could put a labor cost in there if you wanted to get it like a true cost. And then what's the value to intelligently automate? And you're looking here for like 4s and 5s. And it's just like a subjective rating. They're just going and saying, well, this would be huge. Like we're spending 100 hours a month on this. That'd be amazing. Okay, so once we've got some problems to solve and some use cases, how do you actually go find the tech? The key here is you're the expert at what you do. You don't need some person who specializes in AI to do this for you. What you do is you take what you're doing right now, your user story today, to do a thing, and say, if I buy your software, what is my user story tomorrow? Is it going to do 20% of the work for me, 50%? Like, what am I really going to get out of this? So again, it goes back to you're just buying smarter technology. Even if you don't deeply understand that tech, what you're trying to arrive at is, once I have this solution, what is the machine going to do, and what am I, the human, going to do? And so we think about this in this framework, this sort of human to machine scale. Most of the business software you use today is level 0. It's all you. Somebody gave you software, you write all the rules, it doesn't get any better without you getting better. And what we're really trying to get to is just level 1 or level 2. You're not really trying to get the human out of the loop. It's, in most cases, impossible. Like level 3 is becoming more possible with some of these generative AI tools. Level 4, I don't believe exists, nor do I think it should exist. Like I am not a get the human out of the loop proponent. So again, you're looking at level 1 and level 2 and thinking a little bit of AI, even if it's 10, 20% improvement in efficiency, that can go a really long way if it's something that's core to your business and taking up a lot of time. So now I'll kind of give a couple of thoughts on my thesis on next-gen businesses and then some final thoughts on steps you can take. So my general belief, and I published this in May of last year, so a month after DALL-E 2 came out, the image generation technology, 5 months or so before ChatGPT came out, is that there will be 3 types of businesses in every industry: AI native, AI emergent, and obsolete. AI native is, I look at your industry. So last night I met some wonderful lawyers sitting out on the patio, and they were saying that they didn't think this was a thing for lawyers. And I said, I apologize, but I beg to differ. All it takes is looking at a specific business and saying, I'm going to build a smarter version of that. Because law firms can't move quickly, professional service firms can't move quickly, marketing agencies, like take your pick. Just give me a business and give me 10 minutes and I can tell you probably how to build a more efficient version of that business. So either someone comes in and says, I'm going to take on this industry and go get a few AI geeks to help me and we're going to make a bunch of money, or the AI emergent people are the ones who are already there, who already have the data, the customer base, the distribution, like the promotion, the large audience, and they figure it out and they commit to building smarter versions of their company. And everybody else is irrelevant. Now, it may take a couple years depending on the industry. Like if you're in a software business, it could be 2 days. For healthcare, financial services, insurance, it's going to be a few years. But over time, you just can't compete with these kinds of companies. So if you look at this and understand what it's capable of and you infuse it across marketing, sales, service, product, ops, HR, finance, IT, like all of it, over a few year period, then the key is you have the ability to do all of these things. So you can personalize experiences, intelligently automate repetitive tasks, enhance creativity, innovation, and decision making. And so if you make a commitment to do that, AI is not going to replace the company you have, the culture, the locations, like all of that still matters. But my argument is if you line up 5 senior living facilities together and 4 of them don't do this and 1 does, there's no way to compete with the one that does. Like their cost efficiencies are going to be so much greater. Their productivity, their ability to attract and retain workforce. So that's my basic theory, is that you should be or choose to work for an AI emergent company. So final thoughts, some steps to take. My overall kind of plea to you is don't wait for the industry to get smarter around you. Like if this is the first exposure you've really had to AI, don't let it be the last. Take whatever the next action is that's best for you. In your organization and for yourself, focus on understanding. You have to think about education and training first. People are afraid of this stuff. Your workers might be afraid once you start talking about this stuff. It sounds crazy to them. They're like, are they trying to get rid of me? And so you have to start with a strategic approach to education and training, including the potential to eventually needing to reskill and upskill some of your existing workforce. So none of this can happen until there's an understanding of what exactly it is. The second thing I would advise is to create an AI council. Now, you could do this together if you're non-competitive, like maybe you form a little AI council among yourselves and think about best practices across multiple facilities or organizations, or you do it within your own organization. Now, it could be 2 people on this council, or it could be 10. Like how you form it is kind of up to you and your organization, but you want people who are looking forward and saying, how do we do this? What are the policies and practices, and what's the impact it's going to have? The third thing, and I would actually say start this while you're doing the other 2 things, is responsible AI principles and generative AI policies for your company. There is a link here, so I'm not going to go through this right now, but the deck will be made available and you can get this. It's just a bit.ly/AI-principles. So I put this out under Creative Commons, meaning take it, edit it, remix it. Like if you don't have anything, start here. It can get you really moving forward quickly and start to help you form your own thinking around what decisions even need to be made. Because it's really hard to understand how far-reaching this is going to be, but this hopefully helps frame it for you. The other thing I would advise, and this is more for your marketing team and your sales team initially, most likely, is have some policies around your use of this technology specific to how people would interact in the public with it. So this is from Wired Magazine. I just share this one because I think it's super simple and I like how they just have 7 things. I'm not saying to do what they're doing per se, but have this like, here's how we're going to use image generation, language generation, and that gives, again, some confidence to your team about what they should be doing. Because you may have people using ChatGPT who don't even want to tell you they're using it. Because maybe they're doing stuff more efficiently and like you're not asking, so they're not telling. That's happening a lot. Or if you use outside agencies, if you hire agencies to do some of your work and they're charging you by the hour, maybe they don't want you knowing that they're not spending the hour anymore. It's taking them 3 seconds instead. So it's important. Last 2 points, and then I'll shut it down. I would start to look out ahead and say, what is the impact of this on specific roles within our organization? An impact/exposure assessment. Look at all the different career paths, job descriptions, and start to look out and say 1 to 2 years from now, how many of the tactical things this person does are they still going to be doing all by themselves? Where is the AI going to start to come into play? this is basically idea that the benefits of AI are going to be unevenly distributed based on your industry, based on your own acceptance of the technology. And so in your industry, it may be uneven, how it's kind of adopted. Yourself, you may be uneven based on your own willingness to give up the data needed to get the benefits from this stuff. And then the last point is to build an AI roadmap for your organization. Look out 3-5 years from now and say, how do we want to do this? What do we want to become? And have a vision for where that goes. We do have a conference dedicated to this for marketing, so here's a special code for the Marketing AI Conference if you want to look at that for your team. And with that, I'll hand it back to Michael.
Well, we have some time for questions, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have quite a few. Wow, there's obviously a lot to unpack there. And I guess the first question that I just got was, can we get a copy of these slides to share with everybody?
I will send you the PDF.
I'm sure there's a lot of people taking photos. Questions? Who's got one? Let me bring it to you, Charles. Bring you the microphone.
So my primitive understanding, right, of how all this works is that, the AI output is based on a lot of machine learning on information that's already out in, say, either the public domain or, say, a private domain, right, that is something that's native to me. As an operator, if you're an operator, your operations are based on, especially in our industry, a bunch of siloed applications.
Yeah.
So if I want to ask the question, as an example, which one of my residents are most prone to fall, that information can be built, a knowledge base can be built on multiple different systems, but none of those systems currently talk. Do we still have a last mile where the sort of embedded technology vendors that we have to be able to open up their data to be, let's say, queried in machine learning, a relative like, hey, my payroll system, my EHR, and my CRM, like all need to be, I need to be able to draw correlations for these things so that it can actually learn. Is there something that's still going to be limiting us because those applications the data is not easily queryable to have machine learning, and if so, what do we need to ask from our technology vendors? Yeah,
so it's a great observation, and it's true. So I mean, at its core, what AI does is it makes predictions based on data across all of this. Even language generation is a prediction. At the base of it is what's called a large language model. That model, to your point, learns from a corpus of knowledge. In this case, let's say GPT-4, the internet. It goes and consumes Wikipedia and Reddit and all these other sources, CNBC, takes it all in, and it learns how humans write, basically. And then when you give it a query, all it's actually doing is predicting the next word in the sequence. It doesn't know anything. It doesn't know facts. It doesn't know people, place, it knows nothing. But it's getting really, really good at predicting, where it seems as though it's human-level prediction of what to write. So what you're talking about, if you want to have, in essence, like an intelligence engine that oversees your organization, you can query at any moment to make a prediction or a recommendation or propose an action. Yes, you would need all of that data. That is the unique thing. I mean, move forward, data is the new oil, you'll hear said. Your data, that proprietary data, is probably the most valuable asset you have. And if it lives in silos and you can't make any predictions on it, then yeah, your first conversation is probably how do we centralize this data? Do our vendors have APIs that we can pull into a single data lake and put all this information together and then go at Amazon Web Services and use some of their predictive models around it? But if it's all sitting over here, then you can't centralize it to make those predictions and take those actions.
Got a question here for you?
Are the machines looking at what questions a user is asking and learning about the user itself and then shaping responses in the future based on patterns it's picking up?
Yes. So this is one of the issues that happened really fast with ChatGPT. Italy shut it down. Universities shut it down, financial service companies, law firms. It got shut off in all these organizations because unbeknownst to the user, you would go in, you would take, let's say you took meeting notes, like a transcription of meeting notes, you'd dump it into ChatGPT and say, summarize this. Let's say there was confidential information talked about within that meeting. That meeting data is now in the training set for the next foundational model from ChatGPT, from OpenAI. So when you're using these publicly available models, in almost every case, your inputs and its outputs become training data for the next version. OpenAI just last week announced a version of theirs for a business version where you'll be able to extract your training data from future iterations. And there are some language model companies that'll do that out of the box. But yeah, right now it feeds the next version.
Yep.
So piggybacking on Charles's earlier question, it sounds like the use cases in the shorter term that will be more helpful for folks here are things that are like more general. So like very specific, like help me with a care plan for this resident may be hard because that's kind of siloed data, but like write this email for me is something that's very broad. Are there use cases that folks should be like careful about? I know we're still figuring out some of the, like the trademark stuff. So if I ask it to create a video, I know there was like an image that was created that had actually the Getty Images like, stamp on it. And I think we're still figuring out what is proprietary information we can't use. Are there things that folks should be careful about when they're using some of these generative tools?
Yeah, it's a good question. So yeah, I mean, the predictive stuff around like patient care and personalization on that is a bigger picture. That's like what I would put in the problem-based model. Like we have this long-term thing, we're gonna spend a bunch of money solving this, it's probably gonna be a proprietary solution. Then you come back to the, okay, well, what are the kind of horizontal or general things that are being built for marketing, sales, service that are universal to everybody, like a chat spot or things like that, or a Jasper for writing tools. That's a good starting point for a lot of people if you can just get in because you don't need a bunch of data for it, you just turn it on and go. Your question about the consideration, so there's two areas to know about here. So one that you're referencing is the foundational model. Again, I'm using that term to mean like the large language model or the image generation model that the companies like OpenAI build. They are trained on data. In the case of Stability AI is the one you're talking about. They built something, well, sort of, but called Stable Diffusion that was trained on like Getty Images, which they didn't have the rights to. And so when it started outputting things, there would be like ghostings of parts of the Getty watermark in images, which is how they knew they stole the data. Yeah, it's a problem. Same issue with language models. There's going to be massive lawsuits. It'll probably go to the Supreme Court. There's going to be a lot of lawyering. A lot of lawyers are going to make a lot of money in IP law for the next 10 years. The more immediate issue that you can actually deal with is the Copyright Office in the United States on March 16th issued updated guidance that said you do not own anything an AI creates. So if you generate an image, generate a video, generate text, you cannot copyright that material. What that means is if you were to create a logo using Midjourney or DALL-E 2 and you used, that's it, you just had the AI create it, I could take that thing and put it on baseball hats and sell it and you can't do anything about it. So you have no ownership of what you create. Another tangible issue is if you're paying for an agency to help you create content, and unbeknownst to you under a work-for-hire agreement, they're using AI to generate it and then passing it off to you as human-generated, you don't own the copyright to that, which you likely are supposed to under your work-for-hire agreement. So this is like real issues. Now they're evolving, like this will adapt, but at the moment they are very clear that a human prompt does not equal authorship, and only a human can own a copyright.
Can I follow up question on that? So how would people know that it was generated by AI if AI is getting that smart?
Copyright Office has taken a year to process like trademark requests right now. They're probably not. It's an honor system. But if you did get called out on it, you would probably have to produce, discovery work that would show the process by which it was created. So it's kind of like a, if you want to go 80 and a 70, like it's just if you get pulled over, chance of getting pulled over are pretty low at the moment. But it becomes a moral compass thing. So that's in my responsible AI manifesto. I basically said like, hey, the moral compass has to drive your organization because law and regulations aren't going to catch up anytime soon.
A question I have for you is, if you had to make a bet right now, obviously OpenAI came out with ChatGPT and they took off, but they don't have the funding like a Google or an Apple or an Amazon. Do you think, is there any other player right now that you think is kind of going to come out in the next year with something better or just as good?
Yeah, I mean, throughout history, the first mover is rarely the winner. Like Google was like the 5th search engine. They own like 98% of the market today. Apple wasn't the first, mobile device. Like you could go down the list, and usually Facebook was like the 4th social network. And I think you could see something like that here. OpenAI is really advanced, though. There are only so many AI researchers in the world, and they have a very high density of the best. Meta or Facebook has an incredible AI research lab. Microsoft has an amazing research lab. Google has it. Amazon just last week announced their own language model 2 weeks ago. So there are some major players, but there's like 5 or 6 of them.
We got time for one more question down there. Just let me get you the microphone. Is that Lynn? Yeah. Just want to get it so we can get the question on the recording.
Sorry, Michael, I have 3.
I will give short responses.
So let's talk about ambient data collection.
Okay.
How do people control what is collected through their phone or through someone else's phone that happens to overhear what they are talking about? Or data that's picked up by a phone on your heart rate or whatever?
You have to very closely read the terms of service for every app you download. I mean, there is no...
I'm not suggesting you stop. I'm suggesting that data
Right.
is part of what AI is
100%.
using.
So on the law of uneven AI distribution, that was my third point, was your acceptance of this ability to do this. There's a company called rewind.ai, and they are a search for your life. And so you give it access to all of your digital life, your calendar, your email, your meetings. It's basically recording and analyzing everything that happens on your screen, and it'll eventually be on your mobile device as well. So you could query it and say, where was I with Lisa in 2013 when we had that, like, those ribs? And it would pull it up and tell you, like, here's where you were, you made the reservation, like, your life. I will never, ever use that technology. So you may use it and be like, it's the greatest thing I've ever said. That's like, good for you. I will take the memory loss when I'm older. Like, I don't want it to have access to that because I don't trust it.
Yeah,
so we have to make these choices as businesses and individuals.
Right. I think we don't even know whether to make that choice or what to do.
Correct.
And frankly, you hit the little accept button. You
Yeah, just get out of my
app,
way.
And off
Yeah.
you go.
Yep.
So that feeds into another question that was asked before. If all that data that's out there and is being collected in ways we're not even thinking about is part of the data lake, the big global data lake, I would think that we have the capability to do an individual care plan now. Not a great one, but a simple one. So pick a person, 85-year-old female, CHF, vital signs of this, et cetera, et cetera. Isn't it possible that AI could take data on other 85-year-old females living in this area who have this type of diagnostic profile and develop a care plan?
100%.
Okay, so it exists now, it's just not
Yeah.
good. My last question is a really simple one. What 3 marketing or sales initiatives can we do today with AI?
Content creation is the biggest one, like whether it's podcasting, blogging, social media, advertising. So I would look at that as a usage. Image generation, again, like your team may spend a bunch of time looking for stock photos. If you don't care about the copyright, then go for it. The other, email, like everybody does email. So I would really look at tools to help drive efficiency in email, whether it's better segmenting your audience, true personalization of the sends. Those are kind of uniform needs for every business. So I would probably look at those, but I would really take stock of, well, where is your current team spending their time? And I would try and drive efficiency there to redistribute their time to other things that aren't getting done. Yep.
Well, Paul, unfortunately, we're out of time. I think we'd like to probably sit here with another hour and ask you questions, but this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.